thank you everyone for being here on this warm summer afternoon, and we'll bring the Era meeting to order. Sorry. Okay. So I guess I'll do myself in favor. Roll call, please.
Member Smith?
Present.
Olson?
Here.
Novak? Here. Bartholomew is excused. Kozinski?
Here.
Alex Johnson II?
Here.
Bessie Johnson?
Here. Okay, thank you. Next we have the approval of the minutes for June 15 of 22. Is there any changes? If not,
Yes, I do.
okay.
At the bottom of the page, on page 1, Councilor Kosinski was saying what a nice downtown Greenville had, and how their waterfront helped them so much with that. And then you talked about Independence and how their waterfront had helped with their downtown. And then I had a chance to say that Midville has no waterfront. They're doing a great thing in New Midville. They've got the McMillan brothers have done a hotel there. It's great. And they've got private enterprise, 5-story hotel. And their downtown is doing great, even though they have no waterfront. So I would like to have the word independence in the sentence that refers to me, the one next to the bottom on page 2, change independence to McMinnville. And it should be changed in the same way to the paragraph 4th from the bottom, where Kopsinski was talking about McMinnville. And he was talking about McMinnville, so I think it's probably staying McMinnville. So whoever's taking the minutes, you get that. I'd appreciate it.
Okay, any other changes that you may know? If not, then I'll accept the motion to approve the minutes with corrections.
A motion to accept the minutes with those changes.
Second. We have a motion and a second to approve the minutes of June 15th. All in favor say aye.
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 Opposed, no? Okay, motion passes. Great. Okay, next on the agenda is business from the public. And it looks like we have Oscar and Evelyn Holt who want to speak.
No switch this time. Excellent.
I'll just state your name and
Oscar Holt,
Ellen Holt.
124 Broad Albany Street is the location of our building. And we came and talked to you as the city council in June, and we were asked to come back to this body this evening. And just wanted to, I'll just read this and then we can. We're here regarding the S.E. Young and Son Department Store Elevator Project. As you know from our recap of the June council meeting, this project has taken far longer and cost more than anyone expected. We greatly appreciate the fact that you, the Albany Renewal Agency, voted to make this elevator project an outright grant due to our having exhausted our borrowing power for the purchase of the building and the renovations necessary to get the business open there. Evelyn's going to pass out some information, a letter from Jan Baldwin, and and the recap that we gave you last, in June. We're here tonight to request that you grant our elevator project the projected overrun of $66,000. This was caused not only by unseen conditions found after the initial bid, but also the country's current 9% inflation that has driven up the price of literally everything. We believe it was your intention to see the renovation of the basement and second story happen sooner than later. $66,000 is a very small amount of money for the renewal agency, but it is huge to us. Not funding this request will essentially delay our ability to move forward, instead making it necessary to work first at paying off this overrun. As was stated at the meeting where you and the rest of the CARE board decided to make this grant offer, this is not a grant to us personally or even the Natty Dresser, but it is a grant to the building, making it viable for development and future use for years to come. It is our hope that this body will find it possible to grant this additional amount to the project, preserving your original decision to provide this elevator for the building without placing a burden upon us or our business. Thereby delaying the next phase of development. S.E. Young was 74 years old when he built that building. He was a man who saw great things for the future of Albany and went after that goal. We also believe in Albany as a special place and want to be part of its vitality and growth. But I'm hoping that we don't have to wait until I'm 74 to see this project completed. Thank you for your time and your consideration, and we are happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. First of all, I want to thank you for the update, and hope they look forward to future updates, as we go.
I'm having a hard time hearing you, Bessie.
I'm sorry. Too many things on my eyes. There we go. All right, anyway, thank you for the update and look forward to more updates in the future. I don't know if there's some confusion or not, but the Cara Bank is closed. We've had other projects come forward and we have rejected them, and so my idea as I was reading that was that possibly staff, Seth and Sophie, could assist you in looking for what they call historic grants, I believe, or some sort of, I can't remember what you called it, Seth, but could you tell them a little bit what they might go for?
We chatted just briefly about this. I think that polls are well aware of some of the, like Main Street grants, for example. They're aware of those. And one thing I mentioned to you is there are other forms of financing, less traditional forms that can make projects work when very few other options are available. And I'm certainly happy to work with a lot of businesses to help connect them with folks like Development Northwest and so forth that provide non-traditional financing.
Appreciate that, yeah. Because we've had a few businesses come forward asking for funding and loans and whatever.
And I understand that, and I appreciate that.
Mm-hmm.
The thing is, this is a current project that you have already funded, and I'm just asking to extend $66,000 more to the project. It's already a project that's underway, that's nearly finished, and it seems to me like this is not a request that is outside the scope of your body.
And as far as I know, the money's just not there. We have the projects, money dedicated to the projects, and so as far as loans or grants or whatever, there isn't any funding left, or there isn't any there. So that's why I'm thinking that even though it's an ongoing project, but it's like overrun of the project's cost, and I understand that. But as far as Cara is concerned, I don't believe that we can go any further with this.
Madam Chair?
yes, sorry.
Thank you. Two things. One, I know when it comes to the waterfront, we've had tremendous millions of dollars of loan to deal with that. And I sort of take issue with that in this particular climate. But it just, I want to point that out because to me, it seems like if we can take out $15 million loan in this climate, we ought to be able to help a business that is contributing an awful lot to our community with this. It's not infinitesimal, but it certainly is much, it's just a tiny little amount of money. And I'm wondering also, because we are going to discuss the demolition of Wells Fargo, if we had some funds somewhere because we're not able to do what we originally intended at the Wells Fargo, if there's any way we can send any of those funds to the completion of this project.
The issue with that is that the demolition or whatever goes on there is gonna be down the road a bit, and they're needing the funds now, and we don't have the funds, that's all I'm saying. Everything is dedicated, and as far as I know, there's nothing we can do at this time.
Further question? I've never seen any data with regard to the return on investment. I don't mean to hammer this into the wall, guys, but I've been told that if we do stuff at the waterfront, that there'll be a return on the expense. We spent $3 million just for the plans for the waterfront, and we're taking out a loan for 15 million more. And I don't even really understand what we're getting for that amount of money. I know with Oscar and Tamerlan and this business that employs people who live and work in Albany, we're getting a return on our investment. I just am, quite honestly, a little bit desperate to find anything that this body can do to assist them in the completion of this project. Anything at all that we can do. That's all I'm asking. Is there anything at all, any way that we can help them bring this to conclusion?
Madam Chair, can I say something? So one of the things that has to happen is we have to finish the disposition of the Wells Fargo building. So we allocated the funds for that. What was that? 2.3?
Well, it's always a little confusing when you talk about budgeting for projects versus setting money aside for the cost estimates and stuff. At one point, we're going to do a partnership over $2 million on that project. 2 million actually.
2 million, right? So the thing is that we have, as an agency said, we've set aside this money, earmarked this money for this project. Now that we're ready to change course, we have to finish that piece before we can open up the other funds that we may have left. And so we're putting the cart before the horse. So we have to finish this disposition of the Wells Fargo building before we can open up anything. Because the council, we voted to say, this is the remaining dollars for this project. And for the waterfront, we went to Independence. Independence is seeing $6.5 million new revenue every year because they finished their waterfront.
But they have a hotel on their waterfront that we will not have.
But here's the deal. Nobody wanted to build a hotel until they started their waterfront. So we have to do our piece for private investment to come into the city. Our job, one, is site. We have to keep everything moving. Streets, public safety, all those things have to happen. But we also have to have vision. The vision is, we finish the waterfront, as soon as we break ground, people are going to invest in the city. Our job is not for us, it's for the people who come after us. So if you don't see it right now, then we need to go back to Independence, because they saw it early. They're realizing all that new revenue, and they don't have the same budgetary problems that we do. So yes, the waterfront, we may not understand it now. That's what the whole point of the field trip is, to show you what they did with the vision. They started their waterfront. People came in and invested money in that city. And people from Albany now, because they don't have the waterfront that's done, they go to Independence.
Well, sir, I guess I appreciate those comments, but I guess I would feel more confident of that here if I had been presented with some actual data besides just somebody says for every dollar we invest, we're going to get X amount in ROI. That's just a made up whatever. As far as, I don't know how do I know? I know.
Excuse me, this is business from the public.
Okay,
The Holtz have come
Thank you.
and gave us
all
their,
right.
request, their update, and we appreciate that. And if it's, deliberated later, we can get back to you, but I think the idea of Seth and Sophie helping to see if there's any funding that's available before anything else happens with that's where we're at right now. So I can't give you an answer, and no one else can either, because we're basically to the point where we shut down the loans, we shut down the funding, and that's where we are. Unfortunately, I'm hoping that something can be found or whatever, but that's where we are now, and that's all I can say. So thank you very much for your
I've got a
presentation.
I've got
Okay,
a
there's
question for you. I've got a question for Lynn.
well, this is not a back and forth, this is business from the public, they told us what they're after.
Oh, really?
Yes.
We're not gonna talk to them about their problem?
We just did, and I explained.
Well,
what the
you did, but I
situation is.
haven't.
Is your idea of the closing of the loan program any different than every other Arab board member?
Maybe.
Well, it's
I'd like
not.
to ask, is the contractor presently working on the elevator
Yes.
situation? And you'll have to stop if you don't have the money to, finish what you're presently doing.
Well, he says he will complete the project, or I keep saying a week away, but it's been a week away for 2 months. He says he will continue and finish the project. The big stumbling for us is we didn't have to come up with money to pay him, which, that's it's gonna mean we're not going to be able to continue the renovations of the building, which we have been doing piece by piece. We have a staircase that needs to be built in the basement because the one that is currently there is broken. We just put a new ceiling in on the second story in the room that the elevator opens into, because the elevator people said that room had to have a ceiling in it, or else they couldn't call the elevator done, even though that wasn't part of the project. So that was $6,000 we just did. So our renovations have been ongoing, but we're gonna have to stop that. The whole reason for wanting the elevator was so that we could renovate the upstairs and the basement and start using those spaces, which haven't been in useful production since 1970. So without the funds to go forward, because we're paying off this elevator thing, we're going to be ground to a halt. I guess we'll be ground to a halt like every other person who has tried to do something in that building, just because it's a lot of work. And
you were probably counting on finishing the elevator so that you can get the other parts working and going.
and get some money
Am I
to,
right that you borrowed money from Karen to work on the building, the other parts of the work, or are those bad?
that's all been us.
It's all your, that you've done.
Yeah.
So your request is really pretty small compared to,
In the whole scope of things, yes.
yes. And I'd like to point out on the last page of our agenda today that we're talking about borrowing 15 billion plus odds and ends of hundreds of thousands. And besides from Banner Bank, who I don't know, are you familiar with Banner Bank? I never heard of them. But we're setting it up so the loan can be called on or later than June 1st of 2024. Now, does that mean that we can pay off the money we borrowed as of the year to next June, if we want, or does that mean that they can call it in if they want?
I suggest we cover that when we get to that on the agenda, Councilor Olson, if you're okay with that, because the point of the agenda item was to talk about those questions and explain the process to you all.
And thank you,
So
sir.
my question is, we've got enough money someplace that will be able to pay back 15 plus million in a little over a year, is that correct?
Again, we can talk about this in depth when we get there, but the structure is such that there's no penalty for prepaying. That's the long and short of it.
Right.
Okay, so where's that bag of money that we're gonna use to pay back the loan?
Councilor Olson, we're gonna be discussing that later on, and so, as I said, I thank Mr. and Mrs. Holt for coming, and hopefully Seth and Sophie can work with you and see if they can do anything.
I'll just leave you with one parting thought, and that is, you have $2 million that you have earmarked for the Wells Fargo project. I think this body has the authority to vote tonight to reduce that amount by $66,000 and put that into our project.
And
Just a thought.
I'm so sorry, but if we do one, then we have other lining up too, and
As
so.
I said,
it's
this
some-
is quite different because this is an ongoing project. It's already started and is nearing completion.
But
Yes,
we'll see if there's anything we can do.
Has been set for that, and I'm thinking of the Diamonds, the appropriate name, and their waterfront project. They've come backwards, time after time, and we've given them hundreds of thousands of dollars extra from what we originally gave.
And that was
And I
prior
heard
to,
somebody coming with
That was-
project or whatever, it's real, it's big money compared to my, fairly meager, situation. But it's, kind of peanuts compared to what Karen normally does.
and I appreciate
And,
that, and
you
everything
don't
was
wanna,
done prior
If
to.
you don't want a motion now, I'll make one later.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much, and thank you very much for your, report, and talk to Seth and Sophie, see if there's anything you do. Right now, our hands are tied, and we'll see what goes on from here.
I do not agree.
Well, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we have Lisa Grotto in there. By the way, thank you for the newsletters the other night. Finally got to read it.
Good. Lisa Grotto with the Albany Downtown Association. And just something really quick. We understand that there are no current funds. Albany Downtown Association supports downtown revitalization and encourages if extra money becomes available that it be used to fund building revitalization projects like the SEM building or an electric railway station and other downtown projects. So if money's freed up from the Wells Fargo project or some other project has overages, we'd love to see you reopen the loan program.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Sophie, that's all that's signed up? There wasn't anything online other than the letter, is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, great. So, now we're moving on to the pre-construction contract approval of the waterfront project. And it looks like it's Director Sherry.
Thanks, Chair. Appreciate that. In fact, Stacy's gonna join me up here, I think, to do a little presentation. Maybe I'll just say a word or two as she's coming up here. You know that the delivery of the waterfront project is complicated, and it's been a long time coming. Folks have obviously been asking for it forever. And going into the spring, we got a lot of work to try to figure out phasing for the project. And at the time, we hoped to bid out a small phase one for this construction season. And again, I'm just rehashing what you already know. Running into significant supply chain issues, we're not immune to that, of course. The timeline for doing construction this summer was getting pushed out. It looked like it would be well into the fall. And it was at that point, along with some counsel from previous projects that were also large and complicated, that we were encouraged and explored the use of the Contract Management General Contracting, CMGC, delivery method. Delivery method, this language is how you get something done, right? So with your approval and encouragement, we created a request for proposals, an RFP, to find a firm who had the experience, know-how, and expertise to deliver a project of this magnitude. And I think Stacy will probably touch on this, but there were 3 fantastic responses to that RFP, like really, really good. The one that rose to the top was K&E Excavation. They were all very good, but based on qualifications, cost, and all those things considered, they won. So the process for doing a contract with them is to give them a letter of intent, which says, we intend on working with you, you've won the RFP process, but as you know, and some of the councilors who have been here a little longer, you are the contracting board and need to approve those contracts. And in short, their responsibility is to deliver the project. And that happens in 2 phases. The first is to take our 90 to 100% plans, value engineer them, so this is making recommendations on materials and things like that to potentially lower the costs. They also start coordinating with all the permits that have been going on. I'll have an update for you on those later. And all the subs who will be doing some of the specialized work, and the utilities, and the weather. So they coordinate all of that. And going into this winter, if they've proven satisfactory, the commonplace thing is then to extend the full construction management contract. So we're in pre-construction now, then we would move to construction, where they, like if we were doing the project on our own, would manage the project with someone like Stacy, but this exceeds capacity and that we have currently to do that. So that's the intention, and this first phase of the contract is just the pre-construction phase. So Stacy, I won't say too much, but that's an overview, and why don't you go ahead and take the floor.
Amy, before you start to speak, Director Belcastro, I need to be excused. I'm so sorry. I have conflict and I must away.
Thank you, Councilmember.
Good evening, thanks, Steph. I think you covered like half my report, so that's very helpful. So staff is recommending that ERA award a contract for pre-construction phase services in the amount of $162,180 to K&E Excavating. K&E is a contractor in Salem, Oregon. Construction manager, general contractor, otherwise referred to as CMGC. It is a project delivery method that has 2 phases. The award recommendation that you're considering tonight is just for the pre-construction phase. In the pre-construction phase, K&E is going to provide input to finalize the design. They're going to find the best way to manage, schedule, and basically construct the project. At the end of the pre-construction phase, they will have developed what's called the Guaranteed Maximum Price, or GMP. And what this is the GMP is the total project cost that K&E as the CMGC will commit to deliver the project. When the GMP is developed, we will be coming back to ERA to present it to you, as well as an award recommendation. And then at that time, you can approve awarding the second phase of the CMGC contract, which would be construction. I do want to mention some of the work that will take place during the pre-construction phase of this contract. They'll be able to develop a schedule, work on staging, a work plan so that they can maximize the amount of improvements that are going to be able to be constructed with this project. Let me see if I can take a moment and share my screen. Oh, I'm blocked. Oh, no. Well, hopefully a project understanding, map will come up. If not, it's something that I will share with the agency after the meeting. This is a map that KNE developed, or included with their proposal that provides an overview of the project, and it also explains all the different, work that's gonna be taking place with the project. Sorry about that, that's not working. KNE is going to, I'm gonna just go ahead and stop sharing.
Oh, there it is.
Oh,
Finally
okay.
showed up.
It was
Gave up.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, so I like to, in addition to reading something or talking, I think pictures are a great way to illustrate what this project's about. And this map that they developed, it shows the limits of the project, and then it also includes notes on all the different elements that are going to be included in the project. KME is going to work on developing an early work package during the pre-construction phase. This is going to be important in order to identify items with long lead times or work that can be fast-tracked to remove constraints to staging the project. And the other thing I want to share is throughout the project, they're going to be used what's called open book pricing. That means that we get to look at subcontractor bids, we get to look at the work that KME is going to be bidding, and we can evaluate the costs that they present and make sure that they're reasonable compared to industry standards. The project has a budget of $16.2 million. That includes $1.2 million in water capital funds that'll be used to replace the 12-inch cast iron water line and $15 million in Kara waterfront funds. In summary, staff's recommendation is ERA by motion approve a CMGC contract with KNE Excavating to provide pre-construction phase services for the waterfront project. I can answer questions at this time.
Any questions, Stacy?
I'm good. I was a project manager for 10 years for engineering, so I totally understand what she's talking about, so I'm good.
It sounds good. I really like the way we're doing it because it just seems more economical and will give us the best, again, bang for the buck. That's what it is. Now, you're saying that, you don't have any examples of the motion or anything, do you?
I think it would just be a motion.
The first paragraph maybe.
Yes.
Okay. Councilor Kosinski, do you have anything?
I concur with the comments that have just been made by you. So I think it's a good deal. We need to move forward.
Great, thank you. Councilor Smith, are you there?
Councilor Smith?
Sorry, we're just looking to make sure that she's not,
No, she's not on.
might be muted.
Or might be the.
We're gonna try a random phone number that's showing up here and hope it's Councilor Smith.
Okay, great. Okay, so, Councilor Olson, do you have anything on this?
Yes, I do.
Okay, great.
I thought Walker Macy was gonna take care of all those details.
Walker Macy's the lead design consultant, and so they still are involved in finalizing the design. The design is between 90 and 100% complete. They're not a construction manager though.
Well, I guess, I thought I asked that question 2 or 3 times 20-some years ago. No, Walker Macy, they're gonna take care of everything. And it was one-time payment of $2 million. And well, of course they come back for another 1.5 years and another, so whatever's there. And now we have to pay these guys, what is it, a down payment of $162,000? to take care of this stuff?
The,
How many phases do we have here?
So Stacy, if I could, if you don't mind,
Sure.
again, regardless of institutional memory, the Walker Mason contract was for design and engineering. To deliver the project means to build it was not part of their contract. And so this contract you have in front of you is for construction management services, and we're talking about the pre-construction phase right now.
So
Moving
we
into
spend all
construction
those
is
billions just for a back of the envelope kind of design?
it's a very detailed, fully engineered design, in fact.
Well, it's not finished yet, of course. And it's never been discussed with the public, let alone us. So, and here these guys are getting ready to dig this winter, I guess. Is that why we're okay tonight?
They'll be looking, so the design, is between 90 and 100% complete, so they'll be looking at the plans and specifications that have been developed for the project, and they'll use those plans to develop the schedule, staging, come up, get subcontracting bids, that's what they're gonna be doing. And they're also a general contractor, so in addition to being a construction manager, they're a general contractor with a lot of capabilities that'll be able to actually complete a lot of the work elements when we move into the construction phase.
And is the council completely out of any competitive bidding, completely out of any choice of who the contractors are?
They did do the RFP.
Yeah,
And so, yes, and so there were, like 3 businesses that applied or put their bid in, and K&E, we set up K&E.
And some committee of some sort made a decision to, and I have nothing against, who did get it, K&E.
Yeah,
I have nothing against K&E.
I appreciate that. It was
But
very,
it would be, in the past, the city council has had at least some input and some part in the decision as to who contractors are, and based on the cost of doing the project, and what you say right here, well, the cost doesn't amount to anything, it's just who we like. And I'm sure this is all on the up and up and all well and good, but I can see in the future where this could lead to a whole bunch of monkey business. And my good friend Platt Davis used to call it monkey pricking around and stuff. I don't like it.
we did use it
Yeah,
was.
I know the state is okay, but the state okays all kinds of stuff these days. Like no more single family housing, no more single family zoning.
We're getting off
This is
topic.
on the same kind of order, or what's happening with our state.
So we've got 3 bids, we've got K&E, and it's gonna be the contractor, he's gonna do all the stuff and stuff. My question is, okay, he says 90% design finish. They can start then prior to the last 10% of design being done, like when they do the infrastructure or something like prior to the final tweaking of like the stage, the water feature or something like that, so is that correct?
They will, during the pre-construction phase, they will identify if there's work or materials that it makes sense to start or purchase before they enter the GMPs developed and they enter the construction phase. This could be, if they're able to procure water line material, it may make sense to get that water line in so that it's not going to impact any of the road construction. It could be purchasing some of the electrical components that those seem to have long lead times, stuff like that.
And that's the nice thing about it being like a general contractor and they hire the subs because they can keep it all, I don't know how to do it, I used to do it all the time, but keep everybody kind of, okay, you go first, you go second, you go third, and get everybody together. And I like the idea of them getting the prices of things prior to, so that, or even buying it. I mean, if we okay this, they can go ahead and get things now, and not waiting for wherever the supply chain is gonna be, so.
Yeah, it reduces the chance of change orders and increased costs once you're in construction. And I will share, Councilor Olson, that we used not cost and non-cost criteria to evaluate the proposals that we received. And so K&E did have the lowest markup for self-performed work compared to the other contractors, which is really important, and then also the lowest markup of material procurement compared to the other contractors, which will result in cost savings for the city.
So 162,000 we're paying them, how does that compare to what the other contractors requested or said that they would?
They were all very similar. I don't have the numbers. They all have,
Just around figures.
they're within 20,000.
Thank you.
And when is this guaranteed max price, when will that come in?
They're gonna be developing a schedule. I mean, we actually met with K&E prior to this meeting a couple of weeks ago, and they're ready to go. So I think that once the award happens and we're able to execute the contract, they're gonna try to fast track the project. That's something that they like to do. They like to take a project that on paper should take 2 years and get it done in a year. So
That's good, that'll save time and money.
Yeah.
All right, I keep going over them. Come on. Councilor Smith, are you back on?
I am. Can you hear me?
I can, yes. Do you have any questions for Stacy?
I don't. I appreciate the questions that you have asked and what little I have been able to understand through the garbled sound system. It is nasty at this end. And I speak probably for everybody who listens to these meetings and doesn't get to see them in person or even on the little screen where you can read lips. But it's been very difficult. However, I read the report thoroughly. I have confidence in Engineer Belcastro's assessment of the contractor. Have confidence in Seth's assessment of the process and the evaluation of the bids. I agree with Chair Johnson and with Councilor Kopsinski, and I'm satisfied that this is the right way to go forward. I would move to take the action that we need to take. I don't have the language in front of me, unfortunately.
That's just fine. So Councilor Smith has made the motion to do what Stacy said. So, let's see, staff recommends the ARA award a contract to K&E Excavating of Salem in amount of $162,180 to provide construction manager / general contractor pre-construction phase services for ST-22-08 Albany waterfront improvements. Do I hear a second?
I second.
Okay, great. We have a motion and a second. Is there any more discussion? Yes, Councilor Wilson?
Yes. We had a K&E, I don't know, Marilyn, if I talk louder, does that help?
No,
No.
Okay.
it's just louder garble.
Oh,
Looking at K&E's plan, I see there are railroad crossing improvements again. I see 9 of them. So are those, again, with the crossing arms and the gates and that kind of stuff?
No, there'll be 8 crossing improvements that will be improved, but there will be no crossing arm gates required. And then 3 crossings are gonna be closed with the project. And this work's gonna be done by the railroad company. So one of the tasks that the CMGC will have is to coordinate with the railroad to make sure that it's staged correctly, to not negatively impact the project, excuse me, for stumbling on my words.
Well, what kind of improvements are we gonna make at those crossings?
There'll be, improvements to make it easier for pedestrians to cross, and then there's also just going to be, crossings for vehicles as well.
Well, I have to say, those crossing arms go a long way to uglify our waterfront.
Well, they won't be there, we've
We're gonna
already,
take the ones out that are presently there. That'd be wonderful.
No, we're not removing the only new arms that have been put there in 80 years, but rather we're not required to add new crossing arms to the improved crossings, as was the determination from ODOT a number of years ago. So no new crossing arms. Everyone's happy about that.
Oh, yeah,
Good.
definitely. And so Amy's gonna work with the railroad, I still want to get done in 1 or 2 years. Good luck to them.
we mentioned that to them when we met him, and the president of the company was there, and he is on first name basis with them, so he asked if he could call, and, he probably will be giving them a call after this meeting, so.
He knows the, yeah.
Call for the question.
Oh, yeah, okay, has been called for the question, so,
Well, we have to vote on that if he's calling for it.
right, so, all in favor of calling the question, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Okay, so now we're on to the motion. What I said, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed, say no.
Aye. No.
Okay. Okay, great, so we have a,
Let's do a roll call, I think.
yeah, let's do a roll call to
Councilor
this,
Barna?
Now, her name's showing up. Oh, no, I'm sorry, this is Bel Castro. She's not here, no.
Don't get to.
yeah, she,
Okay, I'll just do a roll call.
okay, thank you, Sophie.
Member Smith made the motion. Member Olson,
No.
Novak is left. Bartholomew is excused. Member Kozinski,
Aye. Yes.
Alex Johnson the second,
Yes.
Bessie Johnson.
Yes. Okay, so is that,
That's 4, so the motion passes.
okay, our motion passes, great, so Stacy, now you can
Get
start
started.
going and talk to the people.
Yeah.
And get started.
Thank
Great.
you.
It's been a long time coming, and thank you for all your work on this.
Thank you, it's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chair, as we move on here, I gotta let you know that the project manager from KD and the foreman are local here. They're beyond excited to work in their own backyard, where they spend a lot of time on the waterfront, so they'll be thrilled.
Oh, I didn't see that written in anything.
It was just a
Snow.
flowery addition, I wanted to let you know.
No, that's great, that is great. Okay, so now we're going on to
Item 6.
waterfront project financing update. And that's Director Sherry.
Yeah, you've got in your packet there a memo that Director Yeager drafted for us here. And this was actually in response to a question that Councilor Kopsinski had raised individually. I don't think we ever formally let everybody, we talked about it sort of in passing during an ARA meeting in the spring, but after being authorized to go out and get the financing, under the agreed terms for the waterfront project, it happened quite quickly. We were pretty blessed by having our team of Gina and Dolgan and Carol Samuels really pushed this thing through. And so just so you saw officially the terms of that financing, that's in on page 6. And you know, there's been some talk about the cost of money, and we know that's going up, but we're able to get in there at 2.7% interest rate on the financing. And I think pretty amazing. And Councilor Olson already pointed out that the opportunity, should we want to take advantage of it, and the response that allowed to prepay without any penalty also exists. And the other neat thing about this is, I just note, I think the bank's name came up. They're Northwest Bank too, out of Spokane. So it's kind of nice to be able to find local Northwest financing at very competitive terms. In fact, very close to what the other downtown street improvements were financed at as well. So pretty exciting stuff. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions from the director?
Did we have anybody locally or anybody close that wanted to loan the money?
There were, I think, 9 or 10 respondents, maybe more, something like that. And the criteria for this was, well, basically, first of all, cheapest money possible, and they checked all the boxes there, and then they had a willingness to allow the no payment penalties. Gina, if you remember any other major benefits, but, we're trying to get the most cost-effective money possible, and they checked all the boxes.
Well, I just feel it'd be nice to keep local money around locally if we could.
There weren't any small local banks at all. I think the closest was probably Salem, but it wasn't competitive with respect to interest rates or some of the closing fees associated.
Great, all right. And so,
Thank you, sir.
okay.
So we don't have to vote or anything, right? Because we already.
It's done.
It's just an update, right?
Yep.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, now, next on the agenda is the Wells Fargo demolition options discussion, and,
There's still a question I asked earlier.
okay, sure, what you have?
You're prepared to pay this money back on June of 2024?
We're prepared to have the option to do that. That's what you're prepared to do. So, with TIF, you can borrow money based on future revenues from tax increment finance income. So we have a very strong revenue, and as such, a revenue source, we're able to borrow competitive rates, and they offered this early date, so if it was possible to prepay by then, good.
So we have revenue that might amount to 15 million within a year.
No, not necessarily. And Gina, I don't know if you want to step in at all, but no, not right now. We don't have $50 million sitting in the bank to prepay that.
So it's just.
Well, how are you going to pay it back within a year? You
We're
must have some money in the bank.
Well, again, it's not my money, it's the ARAs in the cities, and we did a very good job together forecasting our financial ability to both borrow and build. And based on that, they lent money to us with the option of prepaying, but that doesn't mean that you do prepay, just that you have an option to do so.
Okay, well, I'll modify my question. I'll say, do we have that kind of money in the bank?
Did Director Yeager?
Well, I think you heard the question. Is there a question?
I heard the question, yeah. So this just gives us the option to prepay. We had several bids that came in that didn't give us that option, so we would have to go out the entire term of the loan before we could pay it off. If we paid it off early, then we would have to pay a penalty for that. This is just an opportunity that if some point in the future, we want to pay it off early, we can with no penalties, as long as it's after that June 1st, 2024 date. We're not currently planning on doing that. We don't have funding available to go and pay that off. We just have the opportunity that at some point in the future, we could if we wanted to do that. And if revenues came in and the board, wanted to take advantage of that option, they could.
So it's an option, not a.
It's an option. It's just to prevent any penalties from prepayment.
Oh, that's great, because, in case the funding does come in, yeah, that would be pretty good.
Yeah, it's just an option.
Okay, yeah, go ahead, Councilor Wilson.
So how much money do we, ARA, or have in our savings account, if you want to call it that?
Well, we have funding available we have money budgeted for specific projects, and part of that project is for this Wells Fargo building. We're not planning on using any of the funding that we currently have to pay anything more than what we are required to, according to the terms of the loan at this point. So we will budget for the debt service payments and use that to pay those off. But everything else we have is already earmarked for other projects.
We don't have any money in what I might call a savings account?
Well, we have money in reserves, but they're reserved for
How many
specific
reserves do
projects.
we have? How much do we have in reserve?
I have to look at our sum.
Give me round numbers, 50 cents, a million, 10 million.
Well, we have more than 50 cents. Again, again, I would need to take a look at what we have. But again, you know, we have several projects that are in the works that have been earmarked.
Does the manager know how much we have in reserves, or Sherry, do you know, or
I don't know
not?
the exact number off the top of my head.
That's not their opinion, okay. I have been thinking and wondering, we had Tiberius Company come in and talk to us a year ago, last November, I think. Could we get them to come back and give us a rundown on what kind of money we have in reserves and what our income might be and so forth?
So we budgeted very closely for those projections and revisited all those again this spring, as you know, because we talked about this before borrowing the funds to make sure we could budget accordingly and service that debt. Happy to review the budget with you, no problem at all.
So at our next meeting, could we have Tiberius come in and talk about it?
You can choose to have Tiberius come and pay them, or we can just share, I think, our updated numbers that we have. And Gina's more capable of doing that.
We have very updated numbers from Tiberius from this spring when we went out for this financing. So we will, I'm sure we can share that report.
Some questions.
Pardon me?
I would like to be able to ask them some questions.
Well, that's what the finance director would be, we would ask her, and she could ask them, and then, she would have the answers, I would believe.
If you had a specific question, we'd be more than happy to reach out to them, but as far as revenues go, we can show you what the trends have been.
So I guess your answer is no when it comes to Tiberius, is that right?
I don't think the answer is no. I think that, it's a cost to bring them in.
How much would it cost? 100,000? Yeah.
If you guys have specific questions that your own staff can't answer, I would venture to guess there's not many of those. We'd be happy to bring Tiberius in if that was the appropriate thing to do. So just let us know.
Well, I would like to have a impartial somebody here to answer the question.
Of how much we have in reserves?
About our care of the situation in general, yes.
Well, we certainly have that information available. I mean, it's in our accounting software.
We seem so hesitant to answer my question.
I'm hesitant to answer your question.
And give us a rundown on where we are.
I'm hesitant to answer your question because I haven't looked at it recently, so I don't know the answer off the top of my head.
Right.
Whatever information I will give you, I would like to make sure that I have looked at it
Right.
first.
We're having an unbiased opinion. I mean, this is our staff, this is who would know what the balances are, and I mean, they don't work just on their funding, and so it's kind of difficult to have it right off the top of your head, because we didn't ask for it in the beginning, you know, so, you know, if you could. answer
Madam
the
Chair.
question. Oh, yes, Councilor Smith?
Thank you. I'm having a hard time understanding not what's being said, but why it's being discussed at this time. It seems to me that if we're going to discuss the financial health of the Revitalization Agency, that discussion should happen at the time when we're building the new budget for next year. And I think, and when all members are present and can discuss it in an intelligent manner, because I'm kind of out in left field here. It sounds like we're asking for, or Councilor Olson is asking for something that the staff is not prepared to answer right now. The answers might not be there in a handy fashion. It's complicated financing, and I would like to have this discussed at a time when everyone is ready to answer the questions, not this evening.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like us to move on, please.
All right, thank
When
you.
are we going to talk about budgets?
The budget process will start in the November, January timeframe when we have our numbers, and we'll be able to forecast our revenues in a better manner than, just looking at our crystal balls. So
Sounds great, thank you. City Manager, did you have a comment?
I think the finance director covered it all. I point out that September 26th is another budget committee work session as well.
Oh, okay. September, that's what I
So this is probably an unanswerable question.
Right now, I would say.
Are we going to borrow every last dime of our $56 million that we were allocated to borrow to begin with? If we borrow this 15 whatever million?
I don't know that information at this time. We are bumping up against our limit though. As far as where we end up, I don't know at this time what that's gonna look like.
So if we vote to approve this borrowing,
Sorry, to approve.
pardon?
Sorry, to approve. We have the money already.
Well, what are we doing tonight here then?
Just an update.
This was just an update, right, and so, I think we have that, and so,
So what we're really doing, we're going to call an end to Carol.
well, it's not, Carol hopefully will sunset. That's the goal. And
It
so,
may be yours, but not mine.
well, that's how it was started, but anyway, City Manager.
Well, I would just say that each of our projects is experiencing the same pressures from the inflation rate that we're seeing now. So there's value engineering that is going on as part of looking at the projects. So all the funds pretty much are spoken for because, and more, because you're not going to be able to do everything that you want to do. With respect to Carrot sunsetting, and Carrot is it's not an infinite mechanism, so it does have to sunset at some point. And as you remember from the expert that came and talked to us, the idea is that you get as much done as quickly as you can get it done, so you make best use of the monies that you have. You're at a stage now where you are at the closing points. Carrot itself won't go away because we've got to pay off the loan.
Right.
But at this point, there's nothing on the table for a vote. So it is just an update, and I don't know if you have more to update on, but I would get back to you, Seth.
Nothing else to update on, just again, at the request of Councilor Kopsinski, just to make sure that everyone understood, or just was reminded again of the terms of that. We, of course, were given authority and went and did this last spring. Just an update.
I was gonna mention that it just seems forever, it's 20 years ago, you know. I got here right after starting, it's been 20 years. So I think we've done very well along the way, helped a lot of businesses, helped a lot of people. Got our downtown, we're, looking good. So now we'll just have to go forward, just waterfront, and then now we're going to the next part of the agenda. So I want to see what we're gonna do with the Wells Fargo demolition options.
Yeah, so,
Thanks, City Manager and Director Yeager.
sorry, you're
Sorry.
no, that's my fault. Last time we were talking together about the opportunity with demolishing the Wells building, that it would open up. So we went out and got some estimates to make sure we knew what we were ballparking for that. Estimates exceed $10,000, and I would expect for somewhere between environmental remediation, which is kind of the most expensive part. This is where you remove asbestos and lead paint stuff, or it has to be done in a contained way. Between that and the actual demolition of the building and dealing with some of the challenging elements like the safe, it'll be in the neighborhood of $150,000. So that puts us into a category, because of our public procurement laws, that we have to do a request for, go out and do an actual a competitive bidding process. Thank you, Sophie. And so if you would like to move forward with that, you authorize staff to go out and do a competitive, following the ORS standards, do a competitive bidding process to actually get an official bid so the work can be executed.
Yes, Mayor Johnson.
So it's feasible for us to move forward with a possible quote of that.
Yeah.
Pre-bid, pre-competitive.
Yeah, exactly. Well, actually, Is it three? I'll go look exactly.
What's
what
the,
the
there's,
rules are.
I think there's a number, right?
Yeah, it depends, there's these thresholds, so if it's, over 10 or 75 or 150, it changes a little bit, so, but yes, it'd be a competitive bidding process, and I think 3 is accurate.
I support that, I'm just saying.
Okay, and I'm sorry, maybe I'm on Counselor Smith's side too, I didn't quite hear that now, so you say to demolish the Wells Fargo building, it could be anywhere from 100, 150,000?
I think about 150 would be accurate based on the estimates that we received, combining both the cost of the building itself and the environmental, like the hazardous material remediation that needs to go on within the building. Turns out when you have asbestos lead paint, you can't just knock down the building any longer. You have to do it in a contained environment. So, we looked into that portion of it several months ago using grant funds that we were awarded when there was redevelopment activities going on. So we know pretty close what that cost will be, and then combined with the building about 150,000.
Now, does that take down the building, like say to ground level, assuming that everything is, all the infrastructure and everything there, because you're gonna have
Yeah.
electricity,
Sure.
water, all that kind of stuff?
Yeah, so basically that brings it down to ground level and spells out utilities, and it leaves it in the best shape possible for any future use.
That's what.
The challenge with not knowing exactly what's going to happen is you don't know exactly how to leave it. So, but basically we worked with a couple of companies and we'll leave the most flexibility possible.
And do you have any idea of the timeframe?
Yeah, actually it's a good question. Of course, we need to do a competitive bidding process, and depending on the responses, then we know exact timelines. But with a couple of folks we talked to, it would be late fall, early winter at the earliest.
Okay, so it would be ready to maybe put on the market, say, early next year?
Sure.
Would be possible?
Yeah.
Right. Okay. Any other questions on the Wells Fargo demolition? Ms. Wilson?
Oh, yes, we paid $1.5 million for the building, is that right?
And the property, so the entire half square block.
So we tear down the building, and what are we going to ask? Are we going to give it to somebody, or are we going to try to sell
And that'd be a forthcoming conversation, I think, would depend on what you want to do. And typically we have a discussion about pros and cons and do request for proposals to see highest and best use and entertain those and then negotiate a deal on it. So that would be forthcoming.
it? Would it make more sense to try and sell it as is rather than tear it down and try to sell a vacant lot?
Well, I don't want to revisit the opinion of the area.
Particularly in a town that no longer has an urban renewal that's doing anything to help the downtown part. It seems to me we're generating a nice vacant lot that'll sit there for decades.
I don't know if the area
Chair
wants to
Johnson?
respond to that.
Oh, yes, Councilor Smith?
Thank you. I would like to, I want to make a motion to authorize the staff to proceed with a competitive bidding process for demolition of the Wells Fargo building.
Second.
All right, there's a motion and a second to authorize staff to go forward with the, RFP for demolition. Any more discussion on it? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, so that's, again, this, I believe it's the same as it was the last time, but let's do a roll call anyway, just to make sure.
Member Smith,
Yes.
Olson,
Hello? Hello?
we heard you.
Yeah, we hear you.
I'm opposed to tearing down the building, but I'm in favor of getting bids.
Okay, so that's a yes?
Novak is, has left, Albany is excused. Kozinski,
Yes.
Alex Johnson II,
Yes.
Bessie Johnson.
Yes.
Motion passes.
4-0, I mean 4-1, I don't know. 1, 2, 3, 4, yeah.
5-0.
Okay, great. All right.
Am I correct that Counselor Novak is no longer in the meeting?
That is correct, yes, she had to leave for,
Okay.
personal reason.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, now, I don't know. Staff updates, who else? It's this, it's the Sherry and Sophie meeting. All right, do you have any?
Well, we are your staff, so, I just wanted to give you some really positive updates on the permitting side of the waterfront project. Again, a lot going on there between wetlands and environmental and land use and floodplains. There's a lot happening, very complicated, but we've been really diligent on that and have a really good team who's pursued that, led by Walker Macy. So quick update, wetland permitting approved. So that's ready for construction. It turns out I'm going to choose my words carefully. GLCD decided, it's classified that park as wetland, so we had to do a little wetland remediation work there, but pretty minor, and the permits are through, which is the biggest hang up on those projects typically. So less than a year, we had permits for wetlands. The land use permits are through, and that is, you might recall, there's some parking lot reconstruction where it interfaces with the road over on Ellsworth and Lion Street, so that's been approved. The floodplain development permit has been approved. Yes, yeah, pretty remarkable. And then land use for Monteith Park has also been approved, although there's a few questions we're addressing with the fire marshal there, but that's been approved. And then there was some talk about the ODOT rail crossing application, so we actually have a notice to proceed. Well, it's NPA, I think that's what it stands for. Sorry.
Counselor Smith, did you have something?
No, I was trying to manage a dog. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, good. I was impressed with your knowledge of rail terminology.
Good luck.
So that's been approved, and so ODOT Rail's looked at it, they're good to go. We're at the last stages with the rail companies on doing the final approvals, but I'll just mention to you that we spent a lot of time working with the 3 rail companies who have interest, ownership or lease-wise on that line, and walked through and have discussed all the design engineering with them, and they approved it initially, so they're going through their final reviews right now. So that's pretty positive. It could be an any day kind of thing there, or it may take a little while longer, but we're getting close and should be ready for construction. And then the last thing I'll just note is we've been in close contact with the franchise utilities that will be undergrounded on the first 3 blocks of Water Avenue. Recall that we worked out a deal to underground utilities there. And then what's really wonderful is Katie will pick up that last leg of the work to negotiate with all the franchise utilities there to make sure that they're coordinated as those utilities get undergrounded.
See, and all this is happening behind the scenes, so thank you all for your work. I mean, it's like all of a sudden it's coming together. It's really exciting. I get really excited.
It does feel that way. Thank you for saying so.
You're welcome. Okay, next is business from the agency. Counselor Smith.
I'm looking forward to being back next week where I can hear things properly.
Oh, I understand that totally. Okay,
Thank you for your patience with me this evening.
No problem. And hope your dog's behaving.
She is.
I shared that. Counselor Kopsinski, anything?
Nothing?
Okay, thank you. Mayor Johnson?
So I was approached by someone on the CARE board, the Californian and Grand Rock Indian tribes are interested in putting a monument on the California side of the park. And up to $350,000. So once it all have come reach out to you and have a conversation.
That's great to know. We had actually been in contact with California Watershed Council early on about some potential restoration work across that bank there, and they were really, really great group. That's great to hear. Thanks for sharing that.
That's great, thank you. Counselor Wilson?
Nothing.
All right, great. And I have nothing. I think we covered a lot, and it's just like, it's so exciting that it's going forward. So let's see, the next meeting is Wednesday, September 21st. And with that, we are adjourned. Thank you all for coming. Bye.
Thank you so much. No, but she said we did it on Wednesday.